It was a warm summer day, and my 5-year-old son James was playing in the backyard. James is usually a quiet kid who prefers playing alone, and he doesn't have many friends, but he has a big imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog, Fido, when I heard James talking. I wondered who he was talking to. Could he have finally made a friend? Being a single mom, it's hard to keep an eye on him all the time, so I decided to go outside and check. When I went outside, I didn't see anyone except James. He was alone. Was he talking to himself? I was sure I heard another voice. "James, time to come inside," I called. He came in, sat at the kitchen table, and I made him a turkey sandwich for lunch. "James, who were you talking to out there?" I asked. He looked up for a moment and smiled. "I was playing with my new friend," he said. I poured him some milk and continued to ask, "Does your friend have a name? Why didn't you invite him to lunch?" James paused, then said, "His name is Laughing Jack." I was surprised. "Laughing Jack, what does he look like?" I asked. James smiled again. "He's a clown. He has long hair, a big swirly nose, long arms and baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles." I realized he was talking about an imaginary friend, which is normal for kids his age. It was probably just a phase. The day went by, like usual, and soon it was bedtime. I tucked James in, kissed him, and turned on his nightlight before closing the door. I went to bed shortly after. That night, I had a terrible nightmare. I found myself in a dark, run-down amusement park. It was empty and creepy, with broken rides and tents. The stuffed animals were hanging from nooses, all with creepy smiles. Suddenly, I heard music playing. Pop Goes the Weasel. It felt like the music was pulling me to a circus tent. Inside, the lights flashed on and I saw dozens of figures coming toward me. As they got closer, I realized they were children, horribly disfigured with cuts, burns, and missing limbs. They attacked me, and all I could hear was their evil laughter. I woke up in a cold sweat, heart racing. I looked over at my nightstand and saw some of James's action figures were facing me. He must have placed them there. I went to his room and he was fast asleep. I shrugged it off, put the toys back in his toy box, and went back downstairs. Later, James woke up and I made him breakfast. He was quiet, looking a bit groggy. I asked him, "James, did you put the toys in my room this morning?" He looked up briefly and then said, "Laughing Jack did it." I sighed and told him to tell Laughing Jack to keep the toys in his room. He nodded and finished his breakfast. Afterward, he went outside to play again. A couple of hours later, I woke up from a nap and rushed to check on James. He wasn't in the backyard. Panicked, I called for him. I heard a giggle from the front yard. When I got there, James was sitting on the sidewalk. I felt relieved, but then saw that he was eating colorful hard candies. "Who gave you that candy?" I asked. He just stared at me and said, "Laughing Jack gave it to me." I felt uneasy but brushed it off, telling James to stay away from Laughing Jack. I threw the candy away, hoping I was just overreacting. That night, I put James to bed and went to sleep early, but I was soon woken up by a loud noise from the kitchen. I ran downstairs and froze in horror. The counters were knocked over and our dog, Fido, was hanging from the light fixture, his stomach open and filled with the same candy James had eaten earlier. A scream from James's room broke my shock and I ran upstairs. Inside his room, everything was trashed. James was crying, scared and trembling in his bed. I grabbed him and ran to our neighbors, Tom and Linda, for help. I called the police, but when they arrived, they only found the dead dog in a messy room. They thought someone had broken in, but I knew that wasn't true. All the doors were locked. The next day, I kept James inside. I set up a baby monitor in his room and kept a knife by my bed. I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. Later, that night I heard strange noises from the monitor. First it sounded like static, but then I heard a laugh, Laughing Jack's laugh. I rushed to James's room. When I opened the door, I saw the worst thing I could imagine. James's body was nailed to the wall. His chest was cut open and his eyes and tongue were missing. Laughing Jack appeared in the shadows, laughing at the horror he had created. He had white skin, black hair and dark eyes. His smile was twisted and full of sharp teeth. He was dressed as a creepy clown and his long arms hung unnaturally. He laughed at my reaction before turning to laugh at James's pain. Filled with rage, I ran at him with a knife. But when the knife touched Laughing Jack, he vanished in a cloud of smoke. The knife pierced James's heart, and I realized too late that I had killed my own son. I fell to my knees, covered in his blood, crying. Sirens grew louder as the police arrived. I was arrested and sent to a psychiatric hospital where I've been for 2 months. It's quiet here, but I can still hear Pop Goes the Weasel playing outside my window. Tomorrow I'll talk to the orderlies about it